Welcome everyone to our special joint segment of Conversation with an Expert by Student Media and Public Platform.
The student media will be recording this for their podcast, and the public platform will be using their Conversation with an Expert sequel.
Today, on the occasion of Environment Week at Nisarga Balika School, we're privileged to have with us a special guest who is ardently keeping the conversation about pollution, sustainability, and other environmental issues alive, and fighting his war against the environmental degradation silently but effectively.
Please welcome Mr. Saurabh Lama, whose linked profile reads that he's an engineer, humanitarian, development professional, researcher, traveler, etc.
Sir, we're really honored to have you with us today.
Hello. Nice to meet you both.
Sir, first of all, we'd like to inform you that we're recording this conversation as part of our club's activities. So, we would like to explain the format of this program. My name is Juan Shrestha.
And I'm Princess Razul Maharjan.
This is an hour-long program, and we'll begin with our conversation first, and then we move over to our panel of interviewers who will put forth their queries in two categories. First, based on facts, and then next, based on beliefs and views.
So we will end this session by your special message to every youth.
To begin with, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Juan and Princess, for that lovely introduction to the show. So I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that. Yes, I'll give a brief introduction about myself. So I am Saurabh Lama. I'm an engineer by profession. So I am a civil engineer. I hold an undergrad degree in civil engineering, but I have a master's degree in energy. So I do a lot of work in terms of renewable energy. So trying to understand what Nepal, as a hydro-dominant country, can do more. So I try to research if solar is more feasible in Nepal in certain places, or if hydro is still the route to go. So I try to do a lot of research in terms of those things. So I'm also, to be honest, I'm also a little bit of a podcaster actually. So I will come to discussing my organization in a bit. But I also love to listen to a lot of podcasts. I also am a host of a few episodes myself. And thank you very much to my two hosts today for giving me this wonderful platform to share my thoughts and opinions. So yeah, that's about me.
Thank you, sir, for introducing yourself. Now, can you please tell us about the environmental issues in Nepal right now?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most important questions that we can start this podcast off with. So if we look around, I mean, even today, the day was pretty hot, right? And tell you what, I'll try to use both Nepali and English in this particular podcast, right? So as I was coming into the school itself, I mean, it was a pretty hot day. I think everybody felt that. I'm feeling it right now. When you look around, even if I go back to my childhood, when I was about your age, I don't remember the summers being this hot, right? I remember winters being quite cold, but if we look back even to the most recent winter, I don't think it was that cold in terms of the actual temperature, right? So things are definitely changing in our cryosphere, in our atmosphere, or even in the environment if we look around. So Kathmandu, our lovely Kathmandu, there's no other way to say it, we're not doing so well at this point of time. About a month ago, we had the unfortunate title of being the most polluted city in the entire world. So that is not a good sign. So even if we look at Nepal as a country, we have not necessarily taken the best care of what we have got, right? So there's a whole lot of deforestation going on, a lot of forest fires going on. We have not done a good job of taking care of what we already have. And we as a country really need to take a notice of what's happening in the country. So yeah, we have to step up our game. Most of the forest fires, they are human induced. So that has been made worse by the lack of rains, the lack of predictability, shall I say, to the overall weather. So in terms of the climate itself, the rains are not falling when they're supposed to. It's getting warmer. Also in terms of the environment, yeah, as I mentioned, we really need to step our game up. So yeah, that is, I think, the overall status of what is happening with our environment right now, which is not a very good picture, to be really honest.
Thank you, sir, for sharing with us about the environmental issues.
Well, now we'll move to our questioning panels. If you have any question to Mr. Saurabh Lama, please raise your hand and please be loud.
What is policy in entrepreneur INC and how is it helping to mitigate climate change?
Perfect. So thank you very much for that question. So my organization is called Policy Entrepreneurs Incorporated. So that's what the INC stands for, right? So we are a research institute that's based in Kathmandu. So as a research institute, we study what's happening within this country and even in the global discourse, right? So as I mentioned at the start, my background is in energy, right? So I'm mostly part of the energy team that does the research on energy. So what is happening within the energy space in the country, what things might need to be improved, what things are not working well, what things might need to be changed, right? So I've been looking at the mainstreaming of other sources of energy. If we look around our country, we have a lot of fast-flowing rivers. So our electricity is mostly generated by hydro, right? So the lights that are powering this building, the fan that's spinning right now, so all of these are powered by hydropower. So I was looking at the possibility of introducing other sorts of energy into the mix, right? So we have a lot of solar potential. The sun shines very well in our country. That's a reality, right? So we looked at the possibilities for that and things like that. And we also do a lot of work in natural resources. So we look at agriculture. But most importantly, what we do is we try to inform the people who are working in the public sphere. So as the name suggests, we are Policy Entrepreneurs Inc., right? So we work with policy. We try to give recommendations to the people who draft these policies to come up with I won't say the best, but things that work, right? So that in a nutshell is what my organization is all about. So in terms of the actual climate change mitigation, so my organization is also not that old. So it's a very recent organization, and we are also trying to find our footing within this climate discussion, right? So if we look at Nepal, I mean, I'm extremely glad and extremely privileged to be here among students who already know so much about climate. And once again, thanks to the Nisarga Batika team for organizing the Environment Week, right? So Nepal itself, our discussion is not that old. It's still raw, right? And it is our duty to get this discussion going. So what my organization has been trying to do is we've been trying to digest like the conversations happening around the world. If anyone's aware of the IPCC, right? So we have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So they have their publications, right, which are very technical, which are very jargony. So what we have tried to do is we have tried to disseminate that information and try to broadcast it within the local communities, right? That is also through our publications, through our podcast medium. So we've been trying to get the conversation of climate change going through our organization. So that is the step, right? And also we've been trying to inform the public, the people who make policies. So that is one way that we have been mitigating. We've been trying to mitigate climate change.
Sir, about the pollution issues right now going throughout the world, do you think electric cars are like something that could like stop the pollution, like lower the pollution?
Short answer, yes. Right, so it's quite evident that electric vehicles, they are electric, they don't emit any of the greenhouse gases that has been associated with vehicles that use petroleum, diesel, right? So the short answer is yes. And that is the trend that has been happening in the world. So if you look at the global adoption of EVs, the rise of Tesla, the rise of Elon Musk, that is something that everybody knows, right? The electric car revolution is going so strong now is that traditional car makers who've been making their industry based on fossil fuel-based cars, even they have started to make EVs now. For example, Ford, which is a massive player in the automobile industry, they have started making their own electric vehicles. So the revolution is happening there, and yes, it is very important that the adoption of EVs do take place. And also, if you look at Nepal, the unfortunate reality is that we import a lot of diesel, a lot of petroleum, a lot of petrol from our neighbors down south, right? So we import a lot, and then we use these imports to power our vehicles, right? So if there is a way indeed for us to reduce our dependence on oil and gas and adopt EVs, 100%, I think we will do an amazing job. So EVs are definitely the way to go, and yeah, EVs are I'll say one of the more crucial pieces when it comes to combating climate change. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yes.
As you mentioned in the beginning about deforestation, is there anything going on? Like, are people doing anything to like stop the deforestation?
Both yes and no, to be honest. So from what I've been studying, from what I've learned, is that Nepal itself has quite a bit of climate commitments that we have, right? So every year there's this thing that happens in the world called COP. It's called Conference of Parties, right? So even Nepal sends its delegation to this particular event, and then we make our commitments. We say things like, okay, we'll be doing this, we'll be doing that, we did this in the past year, and all of these things, right? So one of those commitments that we have as part of our, participation in COP and all of these international discussions is that we will plant more trees. So that is one of the things that we have committed. And the good news for everyone who is in the live audience and people who might be listening in to the podcast afterwards. So the good news is that we have actually reached this commitment, right? So the land cover commitment that we made, we have achieved that. That's great. But on the other hand, what we also unfortunately see happening is the thing that I mentioned earlier, which is forest fires. So Nepal is an agricultural-based country. We have a lot of farming going on, right? So there's this practice that happens with farming where they burn the old crop so that the new ones can be planted in, right? And because it doesn't rain as often, or it rains unpredictably these days, the forest is drier, right? So even if you intend to light a small patch of forest, because of the dryness of the forest, these fires travel quickly, which has been leading to a lot of smoke up in the hills that surround Kathmandu Valley. And this was a phenomenon that definitely contributed to Kathmandu being one of the most polluted cities in the world. So there are things that we can definitely do more, but we have done a few things. That is certain, yeah.
Sir, thank you for your knowledgeable answer. And about what you mentioned, Kathmandu has the highest pollution. Like, is there anything going on?
Again, it's a mixed answer for that. You don't see a lot of progress, unfortunately. That is the reality of things. Like, even if we look around Kathmandu, the community forests are slowly being destroyed. That is true. Like, the settlement is slowly moving up the hill. Like our natural resources such as Bagmati and all the rivers that is flowing throughout the country, they have been inundated with a lot of waste. Yeah, I don't know there to be exact. I think there's a lot to be done. I still believe that there is a lot that we can indeed do. So yeah, for that, I think that is what I'll say for now.
Thank you, sir. And sir, I have one more question. Like, I see people throwing like the plastic and stuff, like the dirty stuff in the lake and rivers. And is there like anything that the environmental people are doing to like help that situation?
Okay, so we had the Bagmati cleanup campaign that was I'll say success to some degree. I mean, it managed to get the conservation going, right? So people were they were actively going into the rivers, gathering out waste, but that has not happened lately. That is true. So I think again, like with my previous answers, I think there is a lot we can definitely do. I don't think there's up to one particular person who will be tasked with collecting all the garbage that is lying around, you know. So I think it is a collective thing. There's a concept that I greatly believe in, which is called collective action, which means the actions of each and every individual does amount to a grand total, you know. So I think it is up to us to try to limit the type of pollution that we've been contributing to, whether it be through recycling or not using as much plastic as much as you can. Of course, there is reuse, recycle, and reduce, right? So those are the three important R's. So yeah, I mean, I think the question needs to be looked inward to one individual and be asked, like, what can I do? And again, there are loads of things that you can access on the internet. You can read up a lot of things about what you can do, right? So I think the question kind of needs to be looked at internally. So you need to internalize that answer within yourself and ask, what can I do? I think that is the way to go. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, sir.
What a single person can do and
Yeah.
But we have been taught that industries are like the main producer of, let's say, air pollution, gases, plastic products. So what roles do you think they can play, like reduce climate change?
Okay. Yeah, this is one of the toughest question that even the world is tackling with, right? So I think the greatest polluter, even if everybody wants to take a guess, is the oil and gas industry, number one. Because we've been extracting a lot of oil and gas from the ground, that itself is a carbon intensive process. The product that comes out from the ground itself is also carbon intensive. When we burn it, that also emits a lot of carbon dioxide. So the primary industry that is responsible is the oil and gas industry, right? And again, I don't want to get too political, but the oil and gas industry is powerful, right? They run a lot of industries, they run a lot of businesses, they are powerful, and they have a lot of say in how we as consumers are also consuming their goods, right? So they have a lot of different processes behind it. I don't want to go into those details now. But what I will suggest is, like, the action that we can take can definitely have an impact on what industries, such as the oil and gas sector, can, like our demands will have an impact on that. For example, at the start we mentioned EVs, right? So instead of having all of these cars that run on oil and gas, if the EV number is up, which means we'll be using a lot less oil and gas, right? The other thing is, oil and gas is also contributing through plastics. Like all the plastics that we see, 99% of these are all created from petrochemicals. So if we try to reduce our usage of these particular plastic products, by design itself, it should have an impact on the level of production that this oil and gas industry is doing, right? So our demand definitely has a say on that, right? And then we will always try to have the whole discussion about trying to reduce